Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nurul Naziha, your MC for today. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. I hope you have enjoyed your breakfast and your dinner. So, I would like to thank you all for joining us today for this special webinar session in conjunction to the 50th Malaysian Public University E-Learning Leaders Council, MEPTA. So our topic today will be Self-Direct to Learn, Self-Direct to Live, summarizing 8 Mooc studies in an increasingly self-directed learning world. So we are going to have two wonderful speakers to talk about this topic. To assist the session, we have invited a moderator for this webinar. So let me introduce a little bit about her biography. Ms. Nur Shaharia Abdul Wahab received her PhD on Visual Informatics from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, UKM, currently a director of Centre for Teaching and Learning, UKM. She also involved actively with MACTA and Magnetic. Last year, she has awarded a Vice Chancellor Best in Quality for individual and professional because of her contributions to university on digital learning. So at this time, I would like to invite Associate Professor Technologist Dr. Nur Shahriah Abdul Wahab to begin our webinar session.
Okay. Thank you so much, MC. All right. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all participants, especially MEPTA members for joining today's session. I'm very honored to be moderator for this sharing session. Let me welcome our distinguished speakers, Prof. Curtis J. Bonk from Indiana University and Assistant Professor Dr. Meina Zhu from Wayne State University. Welcome to our speakers. Before we start the session, allow me to give a brief introduction on speakers' biodatas. Curtis J. Bonk is professor in the School of Education at Indiana University, teaching psychology and technology courses. Prof. Bonk is a former software entrepreneur, CPA, corporate controller, and educational psychologist who presently is an educational technologist, award-winning writer, highly published researcher, statewide and national recipient in innovative teaching with technology. Prof. Bonk has more than 380 publications and given nearly 1,800 talks around the world. For the second speaker is Dr. Meina Zhu. Meina Zhu is assistant professor in the Learning, Design and Technology program in the College of Education at Wayne State University. She received her PhD degree in Instructional Systems Technology program at Indiana University and her master's degree in Educational Technology at Beijing University. Her research interests include online education, Mooc, massive open online courses, self-directed learning, STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics education, and active learning. Meina has published her work in such places as IRRODL, BJET, Internet and Higher Education, the Canadian Journal of Learning and Technology, Online Learning and Distance Education. She has taught courses in instructional design, emerging technologies, instructional strategies, web design, and the history, issues, and trends in instructional technology. For that note, I would like to welcome again our speakers, and the title of today's session is Self-Direct to Learn, Self-Direct to Live, summarizing 8 massive open online courses Mooc studies in an increasingly self-directed learning world. Prof. and Doctor, the floor is yours.
Well, hello, everybody in Malaysia. It has been a long time since I last visited. I think it was 2010 when I was in Penang, and 5 years before that in KL, a couple of times with my good friend Eptar Kuar at the Open University of Malaysia, and with Zaraini Wati Abbas as well, my good friend there, and other people. But to be part of the 50th Malaysian Public University E-Learning Leaders Council here today. And I guess you just got your breakfast. If you're still hungry, I have some fruits for everybody to share. So let me know if you'd like me to pass my bowl around to everyone else. There's blueberries, there's raspberries, there's oranges. I've got blackberries too. carrots and celery. So I am eating healthy today. It's nighttime in USA. It's morning there in Malaysia. I can't wait to get there the next time. Now we've got the first one third or first half of our slides loaded. Meina, did you get the second half loaded?
I received your slides. I will upload that soon.
Thank you. So Meina and I have been exploring MOOCs and open education all around the world doing research. In fact, it was her dissertation topic a few years ago. And she's been enjoying publishing various parts of that dissertation. And if there's anything today that you'd like to get a copy of, just put a note in the chat while we're going along or send us an email that you can just send us and we'll be quick to respond to you. Meina, you want to say any opening remarks before I get started?
Hi, everyone. It's a great honor for me to be here. I look forward to a great session with you today.
Okay, now we're going to take it away for the next slide in here. And so we're going to cover various studies. And we've started off just kind of doing this kind of systematic review of what the research says. But then we got into MOOCs and instructional design challenges, including a study we're not going to present here on Malaysian and Indonesian MOOCs, which we published about a year and a half ago. And with my doctoral student, Anissa Sari. And I'm happy to share that with you. So from instructional design challenges, we'll get to self-directed learning and other topics related to that, cultural sensitivity, personalization, and doing some advanced statistical analyses and so forth if we get to that number 8. So, I'm just curious if anyone has taken a MOOC, if you're happy with MOOCs. I can't see you right now, so I'll have to believe that some of you have taken a MOOC in the past and have been satisfied, and some probably have not been. But we'll go through some data with you rather quickly because we have a lot of our research to show. But my friend Chuck Severance on the left there does 3 MOOCs, one on Python programming, one on the history of the internet, and one on programming for everybody. And he even has graduation ceremonies online. He meets his students in hotels, in cafes all around the world. It's very interesting. My good friend Jim Nagai there has taken 700 MOOCs. There's this MOOC idea has taken off. In fact, there are now discount coupons after holidays to take MOOCs. We look around the world during COVID, and just before COVID, in terms of the number of people taking MOOCs from MIT and EDX, there are thousands of MOOCs and thousands of instructors there. And it didn't slow down at all in 2019, 2020, 2021, now 2022. As we look at some of the data, Coursera alone has 45 million learners. And so there are over 100, in fact, over 200 million learners learning from MOOCs now. We look at 2019, it was 110 million learners and 900 universities, 14,000 courses. And they were taking different courses during the pandemic. In the USA, they were taking courses on Adobe and things like that. In Mexico, on speed reading. In India, on entrepreneurship. In Spain, how to play guitar. All sorts of different topics all around the world. Whether we're talking about coding camps, or whether we're talking about mental health and wellness, all sorts of things we'll be taking online. But there was a huge jump or explosion in the number of MOOC takers in May because of COVID, May 2020. And actually in March 2020, I started a podcast show called Silver Lining for Learning. We're still going. If you go to silverliningforlearning.org, we have had people in from Malaysia and Indonesia and Thailand and other parts of the world on our show. I also started running every day on May 10th, 2020. I'm still running every day, 723 days later. But during this 723 days of the pandemic, we're seeing a rise in credentials or micro credentials, nano degrees. Students don't want to go to college for 4 years or 6 years for a PhD. They want to get a short degree. They want to get a certificate, if you will. And you can see the rise of that all around the world, in fact. And again, we have holidays where we have discounts on MOOCs. We go to 2020, you see already we're up to 180 million students taking 16,000 different MOOCs. And there's certain kinds of MOOCs that were popular right before the pandemic and right after the pandemic. And you can see business and personal development and artificial intelligence, art and design. Post-pandemic, it was art and design and personal development. Pre-pandemic, it was computer science. So people started thinking about their mental health. And as we move into 2020 and 21 and 22, you can see the number growing in Coursera, EDX, Future Learn, and so forth. The growth of the MOOCs is not going down anytime soon. In fact, we have data here from just less past October, and you can see again the number of courses and students and so forth. And just December this past year, and you can see again the trend line continuing. We're now over 220 million students around the world, and that's not counting China, by the way, where Meina's from. She went to Beijing Normal University, the top university for educational technology in all of China. She came to Indiana University, the #1 university in the USA, ranked just recently. She's gone to the really, really top places in the world. So I'm fortunate to work with her, and she'll be describing some of our results here in a second. So, we have 220 million students and 950 universities. And again, the growth, and now they're starting to, some of these you have to pay to get in fact. And again, the growth continues. So, are you happy? Are you sad? Are you frustrated? Are you okay with taking MOOCs? Some of you are getting master's degrees from MOOCs. In fact, Indiana University has a master's in accounting and an MBA and other things. Some people are announcing in their wedding announcements that they've taken a MOOC. It's really a strange world. But my former student, Dr. Timothy Hu, who's at the University of Hong Kong now, he was at National Institute of Education in Singapore previously. Timothy looked at the most highly rated MOOCs and what students were looking for in the 10 most highly rated MOOCs. They were looking for activities that were problem-centered. Students were looking for activities where they were going to get feedback from the instructor with a lot of peer interaction, that the instructor was available for them whenever and was passionate about the course that they were teaching. My friend George Felicianos has also been studying MOOCs as long as Meina and I, in fact, maybe longer. And he says there's a need for more qualitative research. He's now in Canada, on Vancouver Island as the distance learning chair in Canada. But George Felicianos has a couple of free books from Athabasca University on teaching online. You can look him up and get a free book. You can get a free book. It's in Chinese and in English, called Adding Tech Variety. You can just go to Tech Variety. Meina might be able to type that in the chat window, techvariety.com, and you can download the book for free in English or in Chinese. Okay. So I've got 3 MOOCs books with my colleagues, Dr. Tom Reeves from Georgia, Dr. Tom Reynolds from National University, Dr. Kao Zhang from Wayne State, like Meina from Wayne State University, and Dr. Mimi Lee from the University of Houston. We've got in fact chapters from Malaysia in these books, and chapters from Thailand as well, and Indonesia as well, and the Philippines, and other Korea and China and so forth, because people are starting to look at self-directedness in MOOCs. There's billions of people during the pandemic that want to learn. They want to continue to learn. And we have to find ways to get people to self-direct their learning. And so what Meina and I are doing is trying to ask questions both of instructors and of students about how they self-direct their learning. And we've been fortunate that we have a database of over 3,000 MOOC instructors that Meina and I and others have put together. George Felicianos, who I just had up, helped us by giving us 700 names of MOOC instructors that got us started. But we've been interviewing, surveying these instructors and now their students about personalization, about cultural sensitivity, about instructional design challenges, about motivation, what motivates them to do MOOCs, about professional development, about the instructional design challenges. I think I said that already. So, there's a lot of benefits to being self-directed, but not all students are self-directed. There's a huge problem in that we have a lot of contents that's open, from the Open University of Indonesia or Open U of China or Indira Gandhi National Open U in India. All around the world, there's open contents, MIT open courseware. The problem is that students aren't ready to be self-directed, the large majority. So we want to find ways that we can build courses, build online learning courses, blended courses, Moocs, that can help people be more self-directed. And so I think Meina is going to point out 10 ways. I'm going to get to 20 ways that we can be more self-directed learning in online environments. But when you are self-directed, you become more self-aware. You start controlling your own learning environments. You're able to persevere. You rely on intrinsic volition and passion to succeed within the course. So the first study Meina did a few years back in 2018 was published in the Internet in Higher Education and been cited over 100 times. And this study looks at all the research from 2014 to 2016 in terms of Moocs. And these were the research questions that she had in this study. What are the research methods researchers employ in empirical Mooc studies? What are the topics they look at? What are the geographical locations of Mooc researchers? And then what are the design and delivery considerations? Meina, you want to take over at this point in this?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Bonk. Could you please move to the next slide? As Dr. Bonk mentioned that we conducted a systematic review on this Mooc research. Dr. Bonk, it seems like you are moving to...
I didn't do that. Sorry.
Is this... Okay. Yes. Yeah. All right. So, and then next slide, please. So this table shows that the journal that published the Mooc-related study, as you can see from this table, a majority of them are published in the IRODL. Some of them are from Computers and Education, BGET, and some of them are from the journals of asynchronous learning networks. Next, please. So regarding the research methods, as you can see in this table, a majority of the research, they use a quantitative research method, and they primarily focus on students' perspective. However, the research that focused on instructor perspective was very less. And also, especially if they seldom of them use the quantitative method to examine instructors' perspectives. Regarding the research focus, a majority of the empirical Mooc research, they focus on the student engagement, motivation, retention, and completion rate, etc. And these are the location of Mooc research team members. The majority of them are from the North American or Canadian or European countries. So based on the first research study, we expanded the systematic review from 2009 to 2019.
So that's a lot of research studies. Meina, how many different studies do you remember how many you looked at? And
500, more than 504, around 541 studies in this systematic review.
So that's a lot of work. And we published that, or she published that in ETR&D, Educational Technology Research and Development, in a special issue that I did a year and a half ago. So it's a top journal, and she's happy to share this with you. We're just going to go through some of the data.
Yeah, so this table shows a similar result as our prior systematic review. The papers are primarily published in IRODL, Computers and Education, etc. Next, please. And regarding the research methods, you can see a majority of them are from quantitative methods. Some of them are qualitative and mixed methods or qualitative methods. Regarding data collection, a majority of them use a survey and platform data for data collection. For the qualitative data, they primarily use the interview or discussion forum, etc. And obviously, for the quantitative data, they primarily use descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. For qualitative, for example, interview, and they use primarily content analysis and semantic analysis.
So we go on to the third study here, and this was published in Online Learning Journal. We had two different studies in Online Learning Journal. It's an open access journal. We're going to have one come out this month in Online Learning Journal, I think, Meina, right? The student side. So we had the instructor side come out in December, the end of the year, the very last month of 2018, the very last month of 2019 in December. Now in 2022, we're going to have one on the student side come out. So you can download all these because those are open access. This is open access journal. So this is on instructor experiences designing MOOCs in higher ed, pedagogical resource and logical considerations and challenges. This was basically Meina's what we call dossier 2, which you would call a qualifying exam study that she did, like a master's thesis, sort of, but advanced more so. So here we were looking at, and MOOCs, can MOOCs be beneficial, to both MOOCs instructors and learners? Yeah, they can be, because learners learn a lot from teaching a MOOC. So, we had different backdrops to the research here. In particular, a few studies have examined instructional design from MOOC instructor perspectives. That was one thing. Meina, you want to explain some of the other things here?
Yeah, so these are the background of this study, as the instructional design is very critical for online learning, and the instructor is one of the important part for MOOCs. However, currently, as you see in the previous systematic review, few studies has examined instructional design from instructor perspective. So this study was to provide suggestions for future MOOC instructors and instructional designers in higher education through exploring MOOC design considerations and challenges.
And so what are the design considerations that MOOC instructors have when they design their MOOCs? What challenges do they perceive, when they're designing the MOOCs? And, how do instructors address those challenges? So what do they perceive to be the challenges? What do they encounter as their challenges? And how do they address those things? And so this is a mixed method study. We started with the quantitative side. And Meina, you want to explain this too then?
Yeah, to answer the three research questions, so we use a sequential mixed method design in which we collected and analyzed the quantitative data first, and then we collected the qualitative data and analyzed the qualitative data. So for the data collection, we use survey interview, and also we reviewed the MOOC courses. For the participants, these are 143 30 participants, and we also interviewed 12 interviewees.
So keep in mind that this is our initial study back in 2018 when we only had like 1,400 MOOC instructors in our database. We now have almost 3 times as many MOOC instructors or more than twice as many. So we have a larger population to tap into in the later studies.
So this table shows the detailed information about 12 interviewees. They are from diverse countries like the US, UK, China, etc. And they have different subject background, like in education, chemistry, language, and literacy. And their courses were offered from different platforms like Coursera, Canvas, and Future Learn, etc. To increase the trustworthiness of this study, for each research question, we use at least 2 data sources, as you can see from survey and interview or MOOC review. For the qualitative data, we use content analysis. For the quantitative data, we use descriptive statistics to analyze the data. As you can see, this shows the MOOCs, the instructor's design experience before. Most of them have designed only one MOOC courses. Only a few of them have designed more than 5 or 4 more courses.
And I did a MOOC in 2012, only one. That's enough. They're not easy. And I had TAs, teaching assistants, helping me out. But you can see a lot of these people, just one MOOC. And that indicates that people were being told that their supervisors maybe asked them to do a MOOC. Maybe they didn't volunteer.
Yeah, so a majority of the MOOCs have less than 5,000 learners, like you can see from this figure. Next, please. So what we found from this study for research question 1, the design considerations, as you can see, they primarily considered how the learning objectives of the MOOC course and how to assess students' learning. Regarding the logistic consideration, they consider time for designing MOOCs and also how to engage learners. As you can see, this table or this figure shows the survey results. A majority of them consider learning objectives, but seldom of some consider the tools for communication or the software resources, etc.
Or none of them considered the learning theory behind it all, which is too surprising, actually. So there are a lot of things that they weren't doing, but a lot of things that they were doing. So it's not necessarily a negative here. It's a little both, positive and negative.
So for regarding how to engage learners, one instructor from the US mentioned like, I engage people in the forum each week. I would write a message that would be the new welcome page for the week. So I was engaged with them during the videos by asking them questions. These are the strategies how the instructor engage learners. For research question 2, what challenges do MOOC instructor perceive when designing MOOC courses? A majority of them think the assessment method, how to assess students' learning in the large number of courses, it was challenging, and how to engage learners. And also time limitation for designing MOOC courses were logistic challenges. So this figure shows the survey results. A majority of them think assessment engaged learners were challenging. However, few of them think technology support or tracking student learning progress were challenging. One instructor expressed the time limitation. He said, I did not get a course release when I was doing it, and it was side project at the same time as my regular load.
So these people were working hard. They were, they were getting extra money. They just having just more time was taking up, but they liked doing it. Most of the people we talked to really enjoyed teaching the MOOCs. They were really conscientious about thinking about the students. They were really thinking about the discipline. And the students too. They were enjoying it too for the most part. We hear about the negatives, but it's amazing the stories that Meina and I have heard from the different people we've interviewed taking these MOOCs. And so, there's a lot to be learned here. There's a lot of takeaways from this research. We have a part 2 going to be coming up. We have a couple slides left in part 1 here. The third question, how do instructors address the challenges that they perceive? They do a simple thing. They don't take classes. They don't buy books. They don't buy books or anything. They don't take a class. They don't go to conferences. What they do is look at other people's MOOCs. They talk to other people who did a MOOC, and they browse MOOCs. And that's how they become confident, and self-efficacy is raised by just browsing. Meina, you want to add to that?
Yes. Next, please. So this figure shows like the approaches that MOOC instructor use to address the challenges, browsing other MOOC courses or seeking help from the platform. However, seldom of them are attending training sessions or reading related news about MOOCs.
Right.
So one MOOC instructor from the US mentioned, when I started making the MOOC, I could see MOOCs that other people had made. That's how he get started. So the primary, from this study, we found that the time limitation of creating MOOCs was the primary logistic considerations and also the challenges. The pedagogical factors were the primary design considerations and challenges in MOOC design, and also the assessment and engagement strategies are the main considerations as well as challenges.
And I think that's the end of the first part of this. And we're going to have to upload the second half of the slides.
Can you see the slide now?
Oh, you did it, Meina.
Yeah.
Okay. You're faster than I thought. Everyone give Meina a round of applause. Okay, before we go further, just take some questions.
Break or questions.
Can we take a questions, see if anyone has a question for us? You can put down in the chat window. Does anyone have a question for us? Nothing other than logistical things, Meina, so far. Do we have, Dr. Sherry, do we have a sense of how many people are here? Everyone has access to the chat, maybe, or not. Maybe they're watching the stream.
Yeah, I see some comments that they couldn't see the slides from Facebook. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let's go back to the slides then, Meina, and we'll go to study number 4. Mooc's instructional design to facilitate participants' self-directed learning. Now, this is an extension of the previous studies, right? And I think you're controlling these slides, Meina, because you loaded them. There you go. So my good friend Randy Garrison, Dr. Randy Garrison at the University of Calgary, he's recently retired from Calgary up in Canada. He has a model looking at self-directed learning. Self-management's one component, self-monitoring is one, and motivation. And we were able to verify his model, in fact, in the last study that we'll show. Next slide. So, there's a lot of research out there about self-directed learning. Learners need certain skills to be successful in these online environments, online blended or fully online Mooc environments. Self-directedness of learners will vary based on the learning environment. So what does the learning environment look like where learners feel more confident and competent to be self-directed? That's what we're trying to uncover here. So instructional design can influence that. Both Randy Garrison and Marty Cleveland Innes and Janet Hill in the University of Georgia, Karen Swan, who recently passed away, all these people have looked at instructional design considerations for successful online learning. And so the purpose of this study is to inform instructors and instructional designers and providers of the design practices. What's going on? How do they design MOOCs? And so, our friends at the Commonwealth of Learning in Vancouver have a course called Mooc on Mooc, where they teach people how to teach a MOOC, which is interesting. And that's free for anyone who wants to sign up. Look at Commonwealth of Learning, COL.org. And we've done a presentation. We had lots of people from Malaysia last year, Meina might remember, take our course. We had one week of the course or one day of the. So the purpose is to inform instructional designers and so forth. So how do MOOC instructors perceive participant SDL? What do they think about their SDL? How can they facilitate SDL? What instructional design? How do instructors design and deliver MOOCs to facilitate self-directed learning? What do they do? What do they think about that they do? How is technology used? And what features of technology are important? So Meina's going to walk us through here the next part. Go ahead, Meina.
Yeah, so for this study, we also use explanatory sequential mixed method design to answer the research questions. First, we conducted a pilot interview with 4 MOOC instructors to revise the survey, and also we conducted a pilot survey with 48 instructors. After that, we formally surveyed 198 MOOC instructors and reviewed 22 MOOCs of the interviewees, and also interviewed 22 MOOC instructors. So for the data collection, as you can see from this slide, we use the volunteer sampling and got response from 198 MOOC instructors, and we also interviewed 22 MOOC instructors and review their courses. This table shows the detailed information of the MOOC instructors. As you can see, the 22 MOOC instructors are from diverse countries like US, UK, Australia, etc. And they have different subject background area, and their courses were provided in different MOOC platforms like edX, Udacity, and Coursera. Some of the courses they have teaching assistants, some of the courses are self-paced, or some of the courses are synchronous or like without a teaching assistant.
Yeah, don't do a MOOC without a teaching assistant. My advice.
A lot of work.
Or you're going to need a lot more berries and fruits to get through that by yourself.
Yeah, to answer these research questions, for each research question we use at least 2 data sources, and for content analysis we use content analysis to analyze qualitative data, and we use descriptive statistics to analyze the quantitative data. So this figure shows their subject background. The MOOC, the survey participants, as you can see, a majority of them are from social science, medicine, and health. Some of A few of them are from biology, math, and engineering. Regarding research question one, what are their Mooc instructor perceptions of self-directed learning? A majority of them think self-directed learning are skills or attributes that can be changed or educated, as you can see from this figure. So one of the interviewee, Emma, said, so when I think about self-directed learning, I think about students managing their time and managing the coursework on their own and how it fits into their schedule and their lives. So figure this regarding research question two, their perceptions of facilitating self-directed learning. Most Mooc instructors thought that they can intentionally or unintentionally facilitate students' self-directed learning. As Ashley emphasized the importance of both instructors' facilitation and students' self-directed learning skills, she said students have a lot of flexibility and also instructors has a responsibility to scaffold students' learning. Research question three is related to the strategies that Mooc instructors use to facilitate student self-directed learning. So this table shows how Mooc instructors try to motivate learners. So these can be categorized into interim motivation and task motivation. For interim motivation, Mooc instructors help students identify the needs and goals of learning and sense of achievement. For task motivation, Mooc instructor motivates students through instruction and multimedia learning materials, immediate feedback, etc. So this figure shows one instructor from Australia. He used interactive map to let Mooc students to say hi to each other, and then they can kind of mark their location through this interactive map. And also he created a Facebook page for learners to interact with each other and communicate with each other.
Meina, you go back a second, Meina. I want to apologize. We're covering Malaysia up here with the screenshot, so we didn't mean to cover Malaysia up there. It still exists. We know it still exists. People take MOOCs in Malaysia. So, but the learning community, I'm going to come back to, is very, very important. That the learning community, right, Meina? It's critical, and a lot of people talk about that. So it's one of the 20 tips that. And when I had a real globe with my MOOC, and I'd spin it around and show where people were from as they came in. Yeah.
So this table shows like how Mooc instructors help students with their self-monitoring process. These can be categorized into internal feedback and external feedback. Internal feedback are related to cognition and metacognition. Like Mooc instructors provided quizzes for self-assessment and tutorial on technology use, etc. They also use the reflection tools or questions to help students metacognition, and also teaching assistant Mooc instructors and peers were involved in the external feedback. So this is example how the MOOCs primarily use self-assessment to help students self-monitor their learning and whether they master the content or not.
Meina, you want to go back 2 slides real quick? That reminds me. This slide is probably critical. And if you want our slides, you can have our slides for free. They are uploaded at trainingshare.com. One word, trainingshare.com. Go under archive talks and then look for this slide. It won't be, it says slide 18, but it should be slide 85, I believe it is. And so, because this is the critical one, this you want to foster thinking, cognition, as well as thinking about your thinking. And I'm going to come back to this this psychological side of teaching a MOOC. Go ahead, Meina.
Yeah, so this is a progress bar that's typically used in MOOC courses to let learners know their learning progress, and also they use peer assessment to let learners to provide feedback to each other. For this, the third main theme is self-management, how the Mooc instructor helps learners to self-management. This is related to the enactment of learning goals, time management, and management of resources. For example, to help learners with time management, they provide time frame of each learning unit and also the progress indicator and also short learning units, etc. So this figure shows in the MOOC courses, they give the basic timeline or how long each video or reading should last. And regarding the technology used for self-directed learning, They primarily use the synchronous communication technologies like Google Hangouts or YouTube. For asynchronous communication tools, they use discussion forum, blog, and Slackbot or Flickr, etc. So from this study, we found that Mooc instructor consider that student self-directed learning are skills or attributes that can be trained, and Mooc instructors can facilitate student self-directed learning abilities. And also, they provide a detailed strategy to facilitate student self-directed learning in terms of motivation, self-monitoring, and self-management. Diverse kind of technology tools are used to help students self-directed learning. They also mention some technology expectation like adaptive learning system or AI system or learning analytics to support students self-directed
If you
learning.
go back real quick, this is really important too. What they're saying is self-directed learning can be changed. Meina and I are optimists. At least I know I am one. Meina probably agrees, is an optimist. And this is an optimistic finding that self-directed learning, actually, you can do something about it. The instructors can facilitate self-directed learning. There's hope for the world. If you're concerned that billions of learners are now learning online that hadn't been before, don't know how to self-direct, there's hope. These studies offer some hope. So anyways, Meina, you can push on to the next slides. Yeah.
So these are the general implications for this study. It's critical to build a learning community and inspire students' intrinsic motivation and provide personalized learning. For Mooc environment, for Mooc providers, it's important to create a personalized learning environment and provide learning analytics and support learning. These are the top 10 strategies to facilitate self-directed learning in Mooc courses, like help students set their learning goals, build learning community, etc. Dr. Bonk will talk about this in detail.
Yeah, you can stay on that slide, I think. Go back to that slide once. So I'm gonna elaborate. We're gonna give more than 10. We try to do 20, but Maine and I wrote a paper in December at the end of December, and we submitted it to Tech Trends. I think we have 15 or 16. Was it 15?
Yes.
Yeah, 15 key ones, and we're happy to share that paper, even though it's not published yet. What do you do to foster self-directed learning? When we presented this paper at the American Education Research Association, everybody went to our poster and looking at how do I do it? What should I do? They were taking pictures of it and so on. I'll talk about the next slide. So we'll cover this. Meina, you can go to the next slide. So we have a teacher says helping students, we want to help them set their own learning goals. I have asked at the first page of the course, why are they taking the course? If they don't know why they're taking the course, they might want to get out of the course, So next slide. Meina, do you want to do some of these back and forth?
Yeah, so the second main part is building learning community. It's similar as what we mentioned before from our study. And also it offers immediate feedback and embed quizzes for self-assessments are important to help students self-directed learning. And also provide progress indicators, as we mentioned before, provide reflection questions to help students monitor their learning, and also design short learning units like 6 minutes or 5 minutes kind of videos. And also have more flexible timelines, like Mooc courses. Usually, if you pass a deadline, they can enable you to reset your deadline, and highlights estimated time frames and making available optional learning resources. They provide a basic and advanced level learning resources for learners.
And so, you see these optional learning resources. They have progress bars. They tell you how much time it's going to take. A lot of visuals. There's also visuals to help structure the learning environment. Tell what's expected next. What's going to happen next. Next slide. And this is from the World Health Organization, or WHO, offering a course related to pandemics and COVID and so forth. So these organizational aids. Our human learning is helped by organizational aids, advanced organizers, and other things. Next slide. So, humans are goal-driven creatures. We are all goal-driven creatures. And so offering people a certificate of completion. These are my two students who got certificates. Next slide, yeah. So there's a course at Yale called The Science of Well-Being that's been taken by millions and millions of learners. all around the world. Well, what does she do? What does Lori Santos, the instructor, do when she designed the Mooc? So we looked at her course. Next slide. So she's doing some of those things. She's given weekly overviews. She's telling how long it's going to take, which are, how far they've gotten in the course. What are the options that students have? If they get so far, can they skip ahead? If they know the content. So, chunking things up is real important. Capturing, so closed captioning, so you can read it and while you're watching the video, it may be in another language if you're coming from Malaysia or China or some other part of the world. Next slide. So helping people out who are, who might be hearing impaired or visually impaired, might have a special need, offering transcripts or, an audio file or something else, highlighting what's important. Next slide. Offering people opportunities to have a quiz or a quick check on their learning. Self-checking their learning is very critical. Next one. Providing students, again, as Meina said, you have an option. You can do this a task, or you can, if you know this area already, you can cut corners and move on to the next topic, if you will. Next slide. And Lori Santos, by the way, created an app that you can download on your mobile phones that's related to her Mooc now. So she's extended her Mooc out to other technology tools. So have a visual show how far, in the timeline, how much it's going to take, your work in progress, how long it will take to get that work done, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 50 minutes, 2 hours. Next slide. And, she has what's called rewirements. This is really what it means is applying your knowledge in the real world. She has a wellness course. So she has students do gratitude journals. She has students practice random kindness. She has students, meditate and get the sleep they need that we all need to get. So, have people do certain things to use the content. And then she has her students come back as instructors or co-instructors, or what she calls community mentors, to help the next Mooc cohort through. Next slide. And she also uses many of people use peer graded assignments to get them feedback and not just have system feedback or instructor feedback. So we also did a study of personalization, and we'll quickly mention this study. This is in RODL. It's free. You can download it for free. This is our research team, and this is Sari on the right-hand side is from Indonesia. She is my very smart student. She is actually an accounting professor, getting in like I used to be in accounting. So go on, next slide. So, the same, a lot of health. So we surveyed these Mooc instructors, many from business and health, computer science. Next slide. And, they were very involved, as I said, very involved in the courses early on, not as involved later on. Next slide. So, when you look at this, yeah, they want to meet the unique learner needs during the design phase, but during implementation, not as much. They ran out of time, I think. Next slide. See, we go to the delivery phase, not as, it's kind of average. There's, the amount of effort that they expel to meet learner needs, to personalize and individualize the Mooc. Next slide. The goal is personalization always, but the problem is, they're used peer feedback, system feedback, tutor feedback, and then instructor feedback comes lower. There's different forms of feedback within a Mooc. Next slide. And when we ask the level of interest in learning new ways to personalize, yes, when they got done teaching the Mooc, they want to teach the next Mooc with lots of personalization. So their goals were noble at the beginning and at the end. When they actually taught the Mooc, maybe not so much, because it's hard to teach a Mooc. I know, I've done one. It's it's fun. You meet people from all around the world. It's fun, fun, fun. I've got friends from all around the world because I did a Mooc, but it's not easy. Next slide. And so when we get into AI, when we get into computer-based feedback and computer-based counseling and automated, reminders, not so much. The only automated thing that most people were doing is automated grading systems, having computer-based grading. AI is not that prevalent, at least when we did this study a few years ago. Next slide. It's coming. So we also did a study at the same time and Meina helped get this published. It was languishing a little bit, but we got it published in a Turkish journal of online and distance ed. It's on cultural diversity. In the United States today, there's a huge emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this study addresses that issue in terms of MOOCs. Next slide. We got 5, 6, 7 minutes left. So just again, these instructors had limited previous online learning experience. Next slide. Some of the ways in which they were, trying to address the learners, mainly just discussion forums and supplemental materials, not doing all that much. Next slide. So instructors, what do they provide? Readings, certificates, badges, options in the tasks. These are what did you do in the, what were the activities that they provided? And then in terms of, do you let your students show each other their work? Can you share? Not so much. The students were not being allowed to share much. The effort of instructors to address cultural diversity and linguistic diversity, kind of middle. Next slide. Strategies to address cultural diversity include transcripts of the videos, subtitling the videos, limited hand gestures. But what if you download this paper, there's table 3 and table 4, which get at some of the things that you can do to address cultural diversity in terms of multimedia use, collaboration, technology accessibility, the development of content, giving feedback. So we interviewed 24 experts in the area of MOOCs from many countries, including the Philippines, including Indonesia, Malaysia. And this is what they told us. You go back a slide, Meina, just real quick, go back. Yeah, so just, how be sensitive of the culture and religion, all sorts of things. They have lots of really good advice in here. And so I recommend, of all the things we're talking about today, download tables 3 and 4 of this study. Next slide. You can go on. Yeah, there's lots there. So the final bit, we'll have 7 and 8. Briefly, we'll do 7, and very briefly, we'll do 8. 7 gets at the student side, and this is coming out this month. This study will be an online learning journal in March, we have been told. Now, maybe it'll be April, but it's supposed to be out very, very, very soon, maybe tomorrow, maybe during this session. So, Meina, you want to explain a little bit of what you did in I helped. Meina and I both interviewed these students. It's fascinating, but this is an offshoot from her dissertation. This was extra data. Meina, go ahead.
So this is a follow-up study of my dissertation study. We interviewed Mooc instructors. We try to get students' perspective, how they use self-directed learning strategies while they learning MOOCs. So there are 3 research questions about what motivated them to enroll in the courses, what were the learning strategies, and what were the design and instructional elements that help them with their self-directed learning. So we conducted semi-structured interview with 15 Mooc students. They are from different countries like UK, Yemen, Turkey, etc. They have different kind of occupation, teachers, students, retirement people, etc. And there's 3 primary themes were generated from this study: motivation, learning strategies, and instructional elements that can support self-directed learning. So one of the interviewee, Jacob, said how he was intrinsically motivated. He said, "I'm retired. I get very interested in this topic. I realize holes in my knowledge and try to fill the holes." So these students talk about how he used the extrinsic motivation to motivate. Some students enrolled in MOOCs to help with their career development. So Sarah wanted to learn from MOOCs and acquire and improve knowledge as a medical physicist. Regarding the learning strategies, they mentioned they use some indications of their progress, like all the progress bars with milestones with a small quiz that doesn't count for the evaluation, but they are good for you to check if I'm really learning. And also note-taking is one of the primary strategies they used. And for self-monitoring, they use tests, and also they allocate some specific time for learning MOOCs. For the design elements that help themselves with self-directed learning, For example, answer questions of each module, or have clear goals, or use authentic examples and flexibility and small learning units, discussion board and feedback. All these elements help with their self-directed learning.
That was like pretty fast, Meina, but that was
We only
good.
have 3 minutes left.
I know. So I apologize to people out there. I wanted to try and cover 8 different studies. So Meina went through this 7th one kind of fast, but you can see there's some real practical things. If you go back a couple of slides in there, just real quickly in here, go back again. Yeah, so authenticity, real important thing. Chunking is real important, as we found out later. You can, yeah. So, and for many people, this is life changing. What the real important thing, and what we wanted to discover, did their lives change from taking this MOOCs? Not to, and many people got a better job, they got a promotion, they got respect at home from their husband or their wife. People's lives change, their personal life and their professional lives, and so that's really good. So we have one quick one, then we're going to read some questions Sherry's got for us real quickly here in the last number 8. So we did a study, the 8th study. This has gotten cited the most of all the studies. 322 Mooc learners. So it's another Mooc learner study. And what we found is motivation positively affects self-monitoring. Motivation positively affects self-management. Not surprising. Self-monitoring affects self-management, and self-monitoring mediates it's statistical terminology. So we'll go on to the next slide. So you can see the effect here. Motivation is critical to the self-management of a MOOC and the self-monitoring thereof. Next slide, I think, is the last slide. What's the future? The future for us is bright. I hope for MOOCs in general. But if we embed some of these tips in our MOOCs, if we do some of the things that we've discovered here. So, we've got some questions here. Meina, do you have any final comments before we go to questions?
No, we
Okay.
can, yeah.
Prof, we have questions from Facebook. Hello?
Okay.
All
Yep.
right, okay. So the questions from Dr. Zaleha Zek Abdulwal. The questions is on the future of MOOCs. How's the sustainability as compared to the other approach?
Well, I assume you mean the other approach being online or face-to-face instruction. In terms of sustainability, you have to remember that lots of MOOCs have been very costly to universities to put up. And so some of them are going to be sustained by charging a small fee for assessments of the MOOC when you take the test, so as they can get the funds to upgrade them. The MOOCs need to be upgraded, need to be updated. So when new data comes in, you're going to have to be changed. I predict that this is going to be a huge problem for MOOCs if there's not a plan for, in many cases, maybe it's planned obsolescence. Meina, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think right now there are many universities, they offered MOOC master degree, and you can take MOOCs and get a master degree, or you can get certificate for $50 or $30. So I think this is maybe one approach that can, and also
Yeah.
some universities have a team that dedicated to update their MOOC courses.
Right. So the teams are, and then a master's degree or a micro credential, they use the money from that to have the pool of money to update the MOOCs. So that's typical. Other questions?
All right, okay, Prof. The second question is from Dr. Nabiha Shuko. If SDL, self-directed learning, can be changed, at what point would be to identify that these students need to change of learning design because they lack of SDL? So from the student's perspective, how should we change the learning design for our students, basically?
Well, there are questionnaires, instruments to assess student self-directed learning. In fact, Meina and I used one of those, or adapted one, for our study. So those things exist. I forgot the names of the authors who designed SDL instruments. Meina, do you remember the authors' names of the instruments you used?
Actually, there are several instruments that can measure student self-directed learning readiness. In our study, we adapted it for Mooc, for measure Mooc learners' self-directed learning readiness. I think some of the strategy you can use that, as Dr. Bonk, you mentioned, you can measure their self-directed learning readiness or skills at the beginning of the course, and also you can and based on the results, you can specifically make some design to help their self-directed learning skills. For example, that you can help learners to set their learning goals at the beginning of the course. And also you can provide some scaffolding, like let students make their learning plans through the week. This is another approach that's widely used. And also, I think some of the instructors use the self-reflection questions for students to reflect their learning process during the course. These are the strategies that you can build in the course design to help develop their self-directed learning skills.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Meina. So basically, what we can write up is on the set the learning goals and also the scaffolding methods, right?
Yeah,
All right.
and the readiness checklists. So use a readiness checklist on the front end, then you can see whether the students have the skills to go further. If they don't score high in the readiness checklist, then you have to supplement that with some training about self-directed learning or design course. And Meina wants to add to that, I think.
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Banks said. And also right now, if you check Coursera or some Mooc platforms, they have already built in some strategy to help students self-directed learning. I remember they at the beginning they ask you, what's your plan for this course? How often will you learn through this week? These kind of build in that kind of strategy to help them self-regulate, self-direct their learning. Yeah.
Okay, great, Prof. and Doctor. All right, we have another one questions. The last one maybe. Okay. Uh, so, do you not think that students taking Mooc should undergo preliminary course as time management? Okay, most of them are adult learners, and number of research state that the main issue with adult learners is the management. So, what do you think about this, Prof. and Doctor?
Meina, I'll let you go first on this one.
I think this is a really great question. I think there are some two approaches might be possible. First, as mentioned, like we can let learners to take some preliminary courses on time management. I remember there's a very popular course is Learn How to Learn, even though they didn't specific talk about time management, but there could be some courses that focus on time management. But another strategy, as we mentioned before, then the learner don't have to specifically take this kind of course. For each subject area, the Mooc instructor, they can build in time management strategies in the courses. These are the two, either or individual course or build in the specific subject areas to help learners subjectively.
And so I'm not going to answer the question, but I just want to remind you I have a free book called techvariety.com, tec-variety.com. And you can download it right now. Over 250,000 people have downloaded for free. Some of you may have seen my book, The World is Open. It's really hard to write. That's a long book. Don't buy that book. It's 10, 12 years old now. But Meina and I have a new book. I just want to mention our new book called Transformative Teaching Around the World. It's subtitled Stories of Cultural Impact, Technology Integration, and Innovative Pedagogy. And this book has 42 short stories of Fulbright teachers from around the world who took a class that we taught at Indiana University. It's a fun book. It's kind of it's all emotional. If you want a couple chapters, I'm happy to send that to someone. The last thing I'll say, I'm very delighted to come in here this morning in Malaysia. I love my time in Malaysia. I've had and in the surrounding regions, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, the whole area. I just always love going to Southeast Asia. And when I go to different places, I often get a coffee cup like this one in Taiwan. I have one for Korea. I don't have one for Malaysia. So if someone wants to send me a Malaysian coffee cup, I'd love to have one. I'm just kidding. When I come visit next time, you'll take me to a nice tea house and we have some tea there in Malaysia. So thank you very much for inviting us in. Meina, you want a last comment here?
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Sherry and scholars in Malaysia for inviting us. I'm very glad to be able to talk and communicate with you. Thanks.
And if you want to find out about, go to my homepage, kurtbonk.com, and the free book is there, and our new book is there. So send us an email. We want to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's great, Prof and Doctor. So, guys, please take note that we should have the copies of Prof and Doctor's book. Okay, and organizer, please organize one nice day, maybe virtual tour to our Malaysia famous or favorites places in that we have. All right, okay. So for that, Doctor and Prof, thank you so much for the very informative topic. I do pick up one of the keywords from your talk, which is on the micro credentials. And this micro credential, yes, it is true that the materials in micro credentials is very beneficial to our students, and because since it is open online and also distance learning, beside it is also bite size of learning modules, right? So with that, Prof and Doctor, we are at the end of this seminar or webinar. So I would like to express my gratitude again to our speakers and also MEPTA for organizing this webinar. So till we'll meet again in another channel. And till then, stay safe, everyone. We have a photo session? Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you again. And also thank you to all. Stay safe, everyone. Okay. Good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Back to MC.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's wrap up our webinar session. On behalf of MEPTA, I would like to thank you all for making time in your busy schedules to join us here this morning. I also would like to invite all MEPTA members to join our MEPTA meeting through the given WebEx links. Have a pleasant day, everyone.